This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. And by Helium Design Lab, makers of our thoroughly considered and beautifully executed helium camera grips. Petapix will call them the world's best for Sigma's BF, Leica's Q3, Q2, M11, and MEV1. Not that we're biased or anything. Check them out at www.heliumlab.design and grab one while they're still in stock. Ho, ho, ho. Happy, healthy, merry to one and all. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. And before I do cut to the chase, a quick announcement from our friendly neighborhood Department of Commerce. We published our 2026 Streets of New York Street Photography workshop schedule a couple of weeks ago. We have just one seat left in our March workshop, only a couple left in October. And today I'm pleased to announce, now that we're fully recovered from the 14-hour time zone change after returning from Tokyo just a week or two ago, that we will be back next year, November 30th through December 3rd, for Streets of Tokyo 2026. Our workshops are a wonderful mix of history, technique, ethics, uniquely structured and supportive group reviews, and of course, getting you out on the streets of the greatest cities in the world for the genre with like-minded people. We may even help you find or hone your artistic voice. These do tend to sell out quickly, and space is strictly limited. So if you're interested, please hop over to www.3bmep.com/streets26 to learn more and grab a spot while you can. Maybe even snag that early bird discount. Okay, back to the chase. Once I had it in hand, it took 1 second for me to appreciate the incredible build quality of Sigma's 135 1.4. Back here in the Batcave, it took precisely 1 frame for me to understand its spectacular image quality. It took just 1 more frame a few weeks later in the Bat Studio for me to mutter under my breath about its freaking magical rendering. But it is not for everyone. It is a lens, first and foremost, for artists. The one lens I'd choose were I a highest-end portraitist working on a dedicated portrait series. The one lens I'd choose were I a highest-end kinetic portraitist, a genre I just made up to describe a sports photographer interested in capturing with intimacy and artistry decisive moments at indoor sporting events, where the distance to the action is constant and for which the 135 field of view is best suited. Something like this, actually, cropped from this, shot on my Leica SL3 with Sigma's jewel-like 90mm f2.8 in Tokyo last month. I mean, I love this image, but the 135 1.4 wide open would have been perfect. Greater reach, even faster autofocus, with the 2 stops shallower depth of field I wish I'd had for this shot. The paradox is that I anticipated it would not be the lens I'd want from Sigma as the street photographer I am. It isn't. And I thought it not as keenly priced as, say, Sigma's 24 to 72.82, which it also isn't. Hold that thought. The bigger picture? The 135 1.4 DG art with a field of view that just happens to be my favorite for portraits since I was a kid. the ideal compromise in my book between working distance to the subject and flattering compression. f1.4 being the fastest, shallowest 135 of which I'm aware, just about 2/3 of a stop faster and shallower, while selling for hundreds of dollars less than its closest OEM competitors from Sony, Nikon, and Canon, is yet another proof point that Sigma is now the world's premier independent lens manufacturer, the sweep of its lens lineup, the sweet spot for the entire industry. That I chose to explore its limits with our usual real-world super telephoto test scene, 1.03 miles as the crow flies across the East River to my favorite skyscraper on the planet, the Chrysler Building, meant for full-frame or full-frame equivalent fields of view between 300 and 1200 millimeters, tells you just how high my expectations were for this lens. And, to my eye anyway, once back here in the Batcave, pixel peeping at stupid high magnification, even wide open at f1.4, vindicated my expectations. A, it actually outperforms the 61 megapixel full frame sensor of my Leica SL3, as it would with the same basic sensor in our A7R5 and A7CR. If we'd had them, it is also available in E-mount. And B, it holds its own against some 400 millimeter lenses in the real world of prints at anywhere near normal image size and viewing distances. In some parts of the frame, anyway. I you not. Not the same across the frame, but still you can see how much resolving power this lens packs. Of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, nothing is, so let's cover that next. First and foremost, the Sigma is ginormous and heavy, weighing in at almost 1.5 kilos, and consuming, call it 81 cubic inches or so in a camera bag. It is significantly heavier and bulkier than any other 135 out there, as in, let's call it, 51% heavier and 66% larger than Sony's brilliant 135 1.8 G Master, 53% heavier and 64% larger than Nikon's superb 135 1.8 S Plena, 44% heavier and 23% larger than Canon's RF 135 1.8 L USM, 16% and 31% larger than the MONGO Viltrox 135 1.8 Lab, a whopping 85% heavier and 47% larger than the not in the same league 135 1.8 Samyang Rokinon twins. Second, as I said moments ago, it is not as keenly priced as Sigma's other premier lenses. The 135 is 16% less expensive than the Sony, 14% less expensive than the Nikon, and 10% less expensive than the Canon. By comparison, Sigma's 7200 2.8 DGDN OS Sports is literally half the price of Sony's equivalent G Master Mark II, while giving up virtually nothing in terms of image quality or build quality, at the expense of being 28% heavier and 11% larger. Sigma's incredible 500mm f5.6 is less than 1/4 the price of Sony's one-stop faster, 14 large 600 f4, less than half the Sony's weight. But I'd say Sigma's pricing in this case is right because, say it with me now, no other 135 is this fast. The competitive challenge for Sigma remains, however. A, it is simply not much more expensive to default to the OEM offering, especially because, to its detriment, differences in size and weight are dramatic. And, in the case of the Sony ecosystem, the Sigma is gated by Sony rather than the lens itself to half the burst rate it allows Sony lenses to shoot. This is not an issue with the L-mount alliance. Hold that thought. B, at the other end of the spectrum, the Sigma is just about twice the price of the punching way above its weight class Viltrox, which, MONGO as the Viltrox is in point of fact a couple of 100 grams heavier than the Viltrox and call it 20 cubic inches larger to boot. The Viltrox is not quite in the same league for build quality, nor has a track record yet for reliability, but the Viltrox build is impressive, and it is simply a much newer brand. And optically, directionally, the Viltrox is very, very, very close. I think it is only a matter of time before Viltrox is universally recognized as the next Sigma. See, the Sigma 135 is essentially 3 times the price of that Samyang Rokinon combo, although these are not remotely in the same class as the Sigma in terms of optical performance or build quality. Third, the Sigma needs the very best autofocus in the business to extract the most from it when shooting wide open at 1.4. You need to be sure the camera you currently have is worthy of it. This is just as true, however, when shooting at 1.8, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that the difference in depth of field between 1.4 and 1.8 at headshot distance, call it 6 feet, is 1/10 of an inch, which is irrelevant in the real world. Finally, fourth, although it doesn't matter to me at all, the Sigma's rangefinder-esque minimum focusing distance is 1.1 meters. No macro for you. All of which leaves us where precisely? First, I want to take a step back to tell you that I am in awe of Sigma's products and Sigma as a company, which is to say its people. And it really does begin at the top in the form of Kazuto Yamaki. Claudia and I visited their new corporate HQ while we were in Japan last month, actually earlier this month, and it confirmed everything I imagined it would. Sigma's success is well-deserved, their respect for their own people and their customers, obvious. I love what Sigma does and how it does it. This is a big reason why we created the Helium BF grip for it. Claudia and I buy Sigma lenses with our own hard cash, from their 17 f4 to 21.4 to their 92.8, all of which I use with equanimity on my Leica SL3. Every single one of them is that good, and especially the 17 and 90 that tiny. The 92.8 is so good that I sometimes leave my much bigger and heavier reference standard god-tier Leica Aposummicron SL90 f2 at home, like I did while we were in Tokyo. Their 135 1.4 DG Art, however, operates on an even higher plane than their I-series lenses. Second, me personally, as a street photographer, I'd prefer something dramatically smaller and lighter. What I wish for is a state-of-the-art autofocusing version of the once-upon-a-time reference standard manual focus only, no longer in production, Leica Apotellet 135 f3.4. Hold that thought. Third, as for what all of this means for you, well, if you are a high-end portrait or fashion photographer using Sony or Leica cameras, who demands the shallowest depth of field with the highest image quality and build quality, or a high-end sports photographer using Sony or Leica kit who operates at a constant distance from his or her subjects appropriate to the 135mm field of view, demands the greatest light gathering or shallowest depth of field with the highest image quality and build quality, operates where monopods or tripods are allowed, or has either the strength or time between action to give the neck, shoulders, and arms a rest, the Sigma 135 1.4 is the lens to get. In the L-mount world, the Sigma is in fact the only game in town, irrespective of speed, image, or build quality, at that focal length, at that speed, never mind the only game in town for autofocus. The only other L-mount 135 option of any configuration in production is the manual focus only, $300, 845-gram Midicon Jangi Creator 135 2.5, not exactly comparable. If you're in the L-mount world and you insist upon autofocus, small size and lightweight, you ought to also take a look at Panasonic's 100mm f2.8s macro. It's the sleeper among all of the lenses I mentioned today, even if it doesn't have quite the reach. The good news is that unlike the Sony E-mount ecosystem, non-OEM L-mount shooters are not gated to burst rates half of what the cameras and lenses themselves are capable. The flip side is that if you are a Sony shooter, you do have a number of superb alternatives, beginning with Sony's own, and until very recently unquestionably reference standard 135 1.8 G Master. But now there's that $900 Viltrox Lab, a lens we own for our Sony systems, and it is a next-generation value. If you can tolerate the 15 frames per second upper limit and the loss of between 2/3 and 3/4 of a stop of light and shallow depth of field, don't mind the size and weight, and are comfortable with the yet-to-be-proven long-term reliability of the newest lens companies out there like Viltrox, get the Viltrox. If you're a Sony shooter looking for a different, yet beautiful rendering, most especially for portraiture, don't need super shallowest depth of field, and do mind the size and weight, I'd suggest taking a close look at Zeiss's relatively diminutive 645-gram 135 2.8 Batis, now on sale for just $1,300. I'm sorry I ever sold mine. But, irrespective of mount, again, if you enjoy adapting manual focus lenses, and you don't care about shallowest depth of field, especially for portraiture at that focal length, because you know you typically want at least tip of nose to eyeball sharp, and that means at least f4, you want that manual focus only lens to be small, light, vintage, and you want it to be one of the best lenses of its time, yes, do take a close look at that 1/3 the weight Apotellet 135 3.4. Although, don't labor under any illusion that you can zone focus with it or that it's a sports lens. Except maybe for lawn bowling. That's kind of it, except to say, too bad for us that Nikon and Canon won't let Sigma into the full-frame space. In the end, whether it's for you or not, whether you can get it for your camera or not, I can only add bravo Sigma. In this 135 1.4, you've created another halo product, which, as you did years ago with your first art lens, the DSLR ERA 35 1.4 DG-HSM, has exceeded manufacturers' capabilities and pricing that they cannot or choose not to match. Man, Sigma, you guys are on a roll. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation in the comment section below because this is an exceptional audience. If you'd like help with a portfolio review, gear selection, finding or honing your artistic voice, sign up for a one-on-one mentoring video called via Zoom at 3bmep.com/booking. Finally, please consider supporting our work by using the no-cost you affiliate links down below, sending us coffee money via PayPal, or most especially, joining us on Patreon, links down below as well. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.